Imagine for a moment that the person you love most in the world, the one to whom you've dedicated every fiber of your being, every silent sacrifice, revealed a truth so bitter it would shatter your heart. Not a lie by omission, but a truth built layer upon layer, born of the purest intention, to forge character, to teach the value of effort, to watch someone's soul bloom without the shadow of privilege. Now imagine that this truth, carefully guarded for decades, turned into the most painful weapon against you, that the test you created to strengthen ended up revealing a deep fragility, a cold indifference so piercing it would make you question everything you ever believed about love, family, and legacy. I lived that reality. I was the mother who hid in the shadows of modesty, watching, waiting, praying, that my son would become the man I knew he could be. But what I discovered that Thanksgiving night, when I stood before him as a woman with nothing, was an abyss so cold it made me wonder if a mother's love can truly survive the cruelest of truths. Brace yourself, because this is not just a story. It is a mirror to the soul, and perhaps to the choices we all make. My life, for as long as I could remember, had been a carefully orchestrated symphony of quiet strength and deliberate anonymity. I was a woman who moved through the world with purpose, yet without fanfare, a ghost in my own opulent machine. For over 2 decades, I had meticulously crafted a facade of comfortable modesty, a life that whispered of sufficiency rather than shouted of abundance. My apartment, a charming but unassuming 1-bedroom in the heart of the city, was furnished with pieces I'd lovingly restored from antique shops and local markets, each telling a story, none hinting at the vast fortune I commanded. My car, a reliable, well-maintained sedan, was a testament to practicality, not luxury. This wasn't an act of deprivation. It was an act of profound, almost spiritual intention. I was a senior financial analyst for a prominent federal agency, a position that afforded me a substantial income, a robust investment portfolio, and a net worth that would astonish most. But my son, Ethan, knew none of this. He believed I lived a simple, perhaps even struggling, existence, a perception I had painstakingly cultivated since he was a teenager. My deepest desire was for him to forge his own path, to understand the dignity of earned success, to build a life rooted in resilience rather than inherited comfort. I wanted him to know the true value of $1, not just its purchasing power, but the sweat and spirit behind it. The crisp autumn air of late November always brought with it a particular blend of nostalgia and anticipation, a feeling amplified by the approaching holiday season. This year, however, a different kind of tension hummed beneath the surface. The call from Ethan had come just days before Thanksgiving, a seemingly innocuous invitation that, to my discerning ear, carried an undertone of something far more complex. "Mom," his voice had buzzed through the phone, a little too casual, a little too hurried. "Myra's parents are hosting Thanksgiving dinner this Thursday. They'd love for you to come." Myra, his wife, was a sweet girl, but her family, the Prestons, were known for their old money and even older expectations. I could almost hear the unspoken subtext in Ethan's invitation, a subtle plea for me to present myself in a way that wouldn't embarrass him. It was a familiar ache, a quiet sting that had become a constant companion over the years. I had always accepted these invitations with grace, playing my part as the humble, hard-working mother, observing the subtle shifts in Ethan's demeanor, the fleeting glances he'd exchange with Myra when my modest life became a topic of conversation. But this year, something felt different. A deeper current was at play, a sense of urgency in Ethan's tone that hinted at more than just holiday pleasantries. As I wrapped my fingers around my warm ceramic mug, listening to the distant hum of my refrigerator, a thought, cold and clear, solidified in my mind. This wasn't just another dinner. It was an opportunity, a final, definitive test. I had spent years observing, documenting, analyzing. Now it was time for a direct, unfiltered confrontation with the truth. "Of course, darling," I replied, my voice calm and steady, belying the storm brewing within me. "I'd be delighted to join you all. Is there anything I can bring?" A beat of silence, a hesitation that spoke volumes. "No, Mom, just yourself," he finally said, a forced lightness in his voice. "Oh, and maybe don't park on the main street, okay? The Prestons' neighborhood is quite particular. Maybe around the corner or something." The words, though delivered with a veneer of politeness, landed like a physical blow. It wasn't the request itself, but the implication, the subtle shame he felt for my perceived status, that cut me to the core. I closed my eyes for a brief moment, the numbers of my meticulously managed portfolio flashing behind my eyelids, my substantial salary, the multi-million-dollar investments, the fully paid-off house that Ethan and Myra had been living in, rent-free, for the past 7 years. 7 years of my generosity. 7 years of them building their lives in a home that was, in every legal and spiritual sense, mine. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. I had chosen this path, this quiet sacrifice, believing I was nurturing strength, fostering independence. Instead, it seemed I had merely cultivated a fertile ground for condescension and a casual disregard for the very person who had given them so much. My heart, usually a fortress of calm resolve, felt a tremor of profound disappointment. "I understand, Ethan," I said, my voice carefully neutral, devoid of any emotion that might betray the depth of my hurt. "I'll be there, precisely at 6. Thank you for the invitation." He mumbled a quick goodbye, eager to end the call, leaving me in the quiet solitude of my apartment, the receiver still warm in my hand. The silence that followed was heavy, punctuated only by the distant city sounds filtering through my window. I walked to my small, unassuming desk, a piece I'd found at a flea market and lovingly restored, its worn wood a testament to countless stories. I opened my laptop, the familiar glow illuminating my face, and created a new file. "Thanksgiving 2025, I typed, the words appearing crisp and stark on the screen. Date, November 20th, Monday evening, 7:15 p.m. Call from Ethan Hayes. Duration, approximately 5 minutes. Content, Thanksgiving invitation. Request for discretion regarding parking. Implied concern about my appearance." I documented it all, every word, every nuance, every unspoken implication. This was my auditor's mind at work, meticulously gathering evidence, building a case. Not a case for a court of law, but for the court of my own heart, a judgment on the character of my only son. I needed to see the full picture, unvarnished and undeniable, before I could decide what came next. The old, slightly worn jacket, a relic from a time before my promotions, before the substantial salary bumps, hung in my closet. It would be perfect. I laid the jacket across my bedroom chair, its faded fabric a silent accomplice in the unfolding drama. My gaze drifted to a framed photograph on my bookshelf. Ethan at 7, gap-toothed and beaming, holding a certificate from his school's science fair. "Best mom," he had scrawled on the back in careful crayon. I remembered that day, the pride in his eyes, the way he had worked so diligently on his project. When had that bright-eyed boy, so full of innocent admiration, become the man who asked his mother to park around the corner? The question hung in the air, unanswered, a phantom ache in my soul. This Thanksgiving wouldn't just be a dinner, it would be a reckoning. A final painful audit of a life built on love, sacrifice, and a carefully guarded secret. And I knew, with a chilling certainty, that the outcome would change everything. The days leading up to Thanksgiving stretched out with a peculiar blend of mundane routine and heightened anticipation. Each morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through my apartment windows, I would dress in my usual work attire, a sensible, well-tailored suit that spoke of competence without extravagance. My reflection in the mirror showed a woman of 64, with lines etched around her eyes from years of careful observation and quiet contemplation, but with a spirit that remained unyielding. 40 minutes later, I would be in my trusty sedan, navigating the familiar streets of the city, deliberately choosing the route that took me past the house. Not my apartment, mind you, but the house. The one I had bought 23 years ago. A solid, 3-bedroom home in a quiet, tree-lined suburb, a place I had envisioned as a sanctuary, a foundation for my family. It was modest by the standards of some, but to me, it represented stability, hard work, and a dream realized. I had paid off the mortgage 12 years ago, a quiet triumph I had celebrated only with myself, a testament to my disciplined financial planning. Its current value hovered around $650,000, a significant asset that formed a cornerstone of my hidden wealth. And there it stood, my house, now occupied by Ethan and Myra. Their sleek, modern vehicles, Ethan's sporty coupe and Myra's luxury SUV, gleamed in the driveway, a stark contrast to my own humble sedan. 7 years. 7 years they had lived there, rent-free, utilities covered, maintenance handled by me, all under the guise of saving up for their own place. I remembered the call, so clearly, as if it were yesterday. Ethan, newly married, his voice filled with a hopeful earnestness. "Mom, I know this is a huge ask, but could Myra and I stay at your place for a few months? Just until we save enough for a down payment." My heart, ever eager to support my son, had swelled with immediate affirmation. "Of course, darling. Stay as long as you need. It's your home, too." He had offered to pay rent, of course, a token gesture I had quickly dismissed. "Don't worry about that, son. Save your money for your future." And so, 7 years had turned into a lifetime of unspoken expectations and unfulfilled promises. As I drove past, my mind, ever the auditor, began to crunch the numbers. Ethan, with his promising career in tech, earned a respectable salary, and Myra, managing a high-end boutique, also brought in a substantial income. Combined, their earnings were well over 6 figures annually. With zero rent, zero mortgage, and minimal living expenses, they should have amassed a considerable fortune over those 7 years. My calculations, precise and unforgiving, showed that over $800,000 had flowed through their accounts during that period. Where had it gone? The luxury SUV in the driveway, the expensive vacations I'd seen glimpses of on social media, the designer clothes Myra often sported. They offered partial answers, but the sheer scale of the missing savings was staggering. It was a discrepancy that screamed of a fundamental misalignment, a disconnect between opportunity and responsibility that gnawed at my soul. At the federal agency downtown, I settled into my familiar routine, the meticulous world of financial analysis a welcome distraction from the emotional turmoil brewing within me. Files spread across my desk, detailing contractor overcharges, grant misallocations, the endless ingenuity of individuals attempting to conceal their true financial dealings. I had built a career on uncovering hidden truths, on following trails of money that desperately sought to remain unseen. Eleanor, heading out early for the holiday? Marcus, my colleague from the next cubicle, leaned over the partition, a steaming coffee mug in hand. He had known me for years, watched me rise through the ranks, seen my commendations, and respected my reputation for thoroughness. He had no idea about the modest apartment, the unassuming sedan, the carefully constructed illusion of my life outside these walls. "Taking Thursday and Friday off," he continued, a warm smile on his face. "Dinner with my daughter's family. Always a joy." I glanced up, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching my lips. "We'll see," I replied, the ambiguity in my voice intentional. That evening, back in the quiet sanctuary of my apartment, I pulled out an old worn leather wallet from my desk drawer. Tucked behind expired insurance cards and forgotten receipts, I found what I was looking for, a small faded photograph from Ethan's 8th birthday. He had made me a card that year, construction paper and crayon, "Best Mom" scrawled across the front in his childish hand. 20 years. 20 years I had kept this secret. 20 years of watching him navigate the world, believing he was earning everything himself, building his own way. I had thought I was teaching him independence, self-reliance, the invaluable lesson of working without a safety net. But as I stared at the innocent face in the photograph, a chilling realization washed over me. Perhaps, in my earnest desire to teach him strength, I had inadvertently taught him to look down on anyone he perceived as having less. The thought was a bitter pill, a painful reevaluation of my life's most profound intention. The phone rang again on Wednesday evening, its sudden chime startling me from my reverie. It was Ethan, his voice a little more strained than before. "Mom, just confirming you're still coming tomorrow. 6 o'clock. The Preston's place in Northwood." Northwood, a prestigious enclave known for its sprawling estates and manicured lawns. "I have the address, darling," I replied, my voice calm. "I'll be there." Another pause, longer this time, filled with an unspoken tension. "And Mom?" he began, his voice shifting, uncomfortable. Maybe dress nicely? I mean, as nice as you can." I looked at the old faded jacket draped over my chair, its lapel still bearing a faint, unidentifiable stain. "I'll wear my best suit, Ethan," I promised, the words laced with a subtle, almost imperceptible irony. Right. Okay. See you tomorrow. The relief in his voice, though fleeting, cut deeper than any overt insult. It was the sound of a son desperate to manage appearances, to shield his perceived social standing from the shadow of his poor mother. After he hung up, I sat at my desk, adding another entry to my documentation file. November 22nd, Wednesday, 8:17 p.m. Call from Ethan Hayes. Content: confirmation of dinner attendance. Request to dress nicely as I can. Implied concern about my appearance in front of in-laws. The evidence was mounting, piece by painful piece, painting a picture I was no longer willing to ignore. The stage was set, the players in position. Tomorrow, the final act would begin. Thursday morning dawned with a crisp, almost surgical clarity, mirroring the precision with which I approached the day. I dressed with the same meticulous attention to detail I brought to my most complex audit preparations. The old suit, carefully pressed, its charcoal fabric faded to a soft ash, hung on me with a familiar comfort. The scuffed shoes, buffed to a dull sheen, hid the worst of their wear, a testament to years of faithful service. I looked at myself in the mirror, a woman who appeared to be doing her best with limited means, a portrait of quiet dignity in the face of perceived hardship. The performance was complete, the illusion perfectly crafted. I locked the apartment door behind me, the click echoing in the silent hallway, and walked to my car. The Prestons' house was a 40-minute drive away, nestled in Northwood, one of the city's most affluent suburbs. Dwight Preston, Myra's father, had built his empire in commercial real estate, a man whose wealth was as undeniable as his ego. Patricia, Myra's mother, hailed from old money, the kind that predated statehood, their lineage a carefully guarded secret, their status announced from the moment one glimpsed their sprawling estate. By 7 o'clock tonight, I would know. I would know whether my son, the boy I had raised with such intentionality, was truly worth saving. The sedan's engine turned over smoothly, a reliable hum that had accompanied me through countless journeys. I backed out of my assigned space in the parking garage and drove through the quiet downtown streets toward the highway. Traffic was light, everyone rushing toward their own Thanksgiving tables, their own family gatherings, their own unspoken expectations. I wondered how many of them, like me, were tests in disguise, moments of truth hidden beneath layers of tradition and festivity. The highway stretched before me, the morning sun glinting off the hood of my ancient car, a silent witness to the unfolding drama. My phone sat silent in the cup holder, a deliberate choice to disconnect from the outside world, to focus solely on the task at hand. The suit felt scratchy against my neck, a physical reminder of the role I was about to play. In my mind, I reviewed the framework I'd spent 40 years developing, the auditor's approach to uncovering truth. Establish the baseline, document the evidence, follow the pattern, draw conclusions only from facts, never assumptions. Tonight, I would gather the final data points. Then, and only then, would I know what kind of man my son had truly become. The neighborhoods transformed as I drove west, a gradual metamorphosis from modest apartments to sprawling homes, then to gated mansions. Northwood announced its wealth from every manicured lawn, every luxury vehicle, every street named after a rare, expensive tree. The Preston estate sat on a corner lot, an imposing structure even by local standards. I estimated its value at well over $2.5 million, judging by its footprint and prime location. A circular driveway, a 3-car garage, European landscaping, every detail screamed of affluence and exclusivity. A sleek black luxury sedan occupied the drive next to a pearl-white SUV, both gleaming under the autumn sun. I parked my sedan on the street, 2 houses down, just as Ethan had suggested, a quiet act of compliance that masked a deeper defiance. In the rearview mirror, I straightened my worn tie, a gesture of quiet resolve. The store-bought pumpkin pie, a humble offering from the supermarket, sat on the passenger seat, a stark contrast to the opulence that awaited me. I picked it up, its plastic container a symbol of my carefully constructed facade, and walked toward the house. A curtain twitched in a front window, a fleeting movement that confirmed my suspicion. Someone was watching. Ethan appeared in the doorway before I reached it, his expression tight, a mixture of forced welcome and palpable anxiety. "Mom, you made it," he said, his voice a little too loud, a little too strained. Traffic was light, I replied, holding up the pie, its simple presence a quiet challenge to their grandeur. I brought dessert. He glanced at the plastic container, then quickly away, a flicker of something akin to embarrassment crossing his face. That's thoughtful. Come in. Dwight Preston, a man in his mid-60s with silver hair and an air of self-importance, filled the doorway behind Ethan. His expensive casual wear, I estimated, probably cost more than my entire outfit. His smile was practiced, professional, the kind perfected over decades of closing deals and asserting dominance. Eleanor, come in, come in. His handshake was firm, territorial, a subtle assertion of his domain. Still driving that old sedan? They really do last forever, don't they? Good old engineering. Patricia Preston appeared beside her husband, blonde and polished, her jewelry catching the light with every subtle movement. Her smile was a practiced mask of polite sympathy. How practical, Eleanor. Ethan says you've always been about practicality. Myra stood behind them, her face rigid with something between embarrassment and thinly veiled contempt. More like necessity, Mom, she muttered, her voice barely audible, but her meaning clear. They ushered me into a living room that belonged in a magazine, vaulted ceilings soaring above contemporary furniture, artwork that looked original, every piece strategically positioned to impress. Dwight gestured to a leather chair in the corner, subtly isolated from the main seating area. Drink, Eleanor? I've got excellent scotch. Or perhaps something simpler? Water is fine, thank you, I replied, my voice even, my gaze sweeping across the room, taking in every detail. Water it is, he said, pouring himself 3 fingers of amber liquid from a crystal decanter, his eyes never quite meeting mine. So, Eleanor, Dwight continued, swirling his scotch, his voice booming slightly in the cavernous room. Government work, isn't it? You're at some agency downtown? The Federal Financial Oversight Office, I corrected gently, my voice calm and clear. I audit federal spending. Dwight laughed, a booming sound that demanded attention. Ah, a bureaucrat. Well, someone has to do it, I suppose. The pay must be adequate. It meets my needs, I replied, taking a sip of the water Myra had placed before me, its coolness a welcome contrast to the heat of the moment. Patricia settled onto the sofa, crossing her legs, her gaze lingering on my simple attire. Such important work. I'm sure public service is so admirable when people don't have other options. I said nothing, merely sipped my water, my eyes observing, my mind documenting. Ethan sat beside Myra on the love seat, his posture rigid, his gaze fixed on some distant point, avoiding mine. The stage was set, the players performing their roles, and I, the quiet auditor, was ready to record every single painful detail. Dinner was served in a grand dining room, a space designed for lavish entertaining, with a table that could easily seat 12. The meal itself was a testament to the Prestons' affluence. A perfectly carved turkey, clearly the work of a professional caterer, an array of gourmet sides and warming dishes, and bottles of fine wine that likely cost more per bottle than my monthly electric bill. They had placed me at the far end of the table, a cheap folding chair brought in to accommodate the extra guest, a subtle but undeniable gesture of my perceived status. My store-bought pumpkin pie sat on a sideboard, utterly ignored, dwarfed by an elaborate selection of professional desserts that shimmered under the soft glow of the chandelier. Dwight dominated the conversation, his voice booming, his gestures expansive, a man accustomed to being the center of attention. He spoke of his latest business deals, the expansion of his real estate empire, the sheer volume of his million-dollar revenue streams. He even turned to Ethan, a patronizing smile on his face. Ethan, you really should come work for me. Real money in commercial property, not like that tech stuff. Ethan, visibly uncomfortable, managed a strained smile. I'm doing okay in tech, Dwight. Patricia dabbed her lips with a linen napkin, her gaze flicking towards me, her meaning clear. Better than some family examples, certainly. Ethan has always been so capable. The words hung in the air, a thinly veiled insult, a direct jab at my perceived financial limitations. Ethan has always been capable, I said quietly, my voice calm and steady, refusing to rise to the bait. Myra's fork clinked against her plate, a sharp, almost aggressive sound. Capable, but held back. Some people inherit advantages. Ethan had to build everything himself. The irony of her statement was a bitter, almost suffocating wave. Ethan had inherited a house, 7 years of rent-free living, every advantage I could provide without revealing my true resources. And yet, they clung to this narrative, this carefully constructed fiction of his self-made success, a narrative that conveniently cast me as the struggling, less fortunate parent. It was a narrative that allowed them to maintain their comfortable superiority, their sense of accomplishment, untainted by any perceived obligation or gratitude. "It must be difficult," Patricia continued, her voice dripping with a practiced sympathy that felt more like pity, "making ends meet on a government salary. Do you have savings? Retirement accounts?" I met her gaze directly, my eyes unwavering. "I am adequately prepared," I replied, my tone perfectly neutral, offering no further details. Dwight leaned forward, a predatory glint in his eyes, but not enough to help with major expenses, I'd imagine. "Ethan mentioned you two found a house, 800,000. Beautiful area, Riverbend. You need what? 160 for the down payment?" Ethan nodded, his face a mask of discomfort. "Yes, sir. We're working on it." Dwight then turned his gaze to me, a triumphant smile playing on his lips. "Eleanor, can you contribute?" The moment crystallized, every eye at the table fixed on me. I felt Ethan's eyes, heavy with expectation, waiting for me to confirm what he had undoubtedly already told them, that I had nothing to offer. "That's a significant sum," I said, my voice calm, my expression unreadable. "That's what I thought," Dwight declared, his smile widening into a full-blown smirk. "No offense, but government work doesn't exactly build wealth, does it? Can't squeeze blood from a stone." Ethan sat silent, not a word in my defense, not even a token protest against Dwight's blatant condescension. Myra set down her wine glass with a decisive thud. We've learned to be realistic about what's possible from different sources. And then, the moment I had both dreaded and anticipated, the final crushing blow. Dwight stood, walked to Ethan's chair, and placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of ownership, of claiming. "Tell you what, Patricia and I will provide the 160,000 down payment, a gift from us. Can't have our daughter wait forever for help that clearly isn't coming from elsewhere." Ethan's face transformed, a mixture of shock, relief, and overwhelming gratitude. "Dwight, that's incredibly generous. Thank you." Myra rose to hug her father, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Daddy. This is why I'm grateful for real family support." Patricia beamed, her eyes sparkling with triumph. "Some families help their children succeed. That's what parents do when they're able." I watched my son, the boy I had raised, the man I had sacrificed so much for, accept another man as his benefactor. I watched him show more gratitude to Dwight in 30 seconds than he had shown me in 7 years. The parking instruction, the cheap chair at the end of the table, the veiled insults, all of it I could have forgiven. But not this silence, not this acceptance of my humiliation without a single word of defense. "That's very generous of you both," I said, my tone perfectly neutral, my heart a cold, hard knot in my chest. We moved through dessert, their elaborate pastries, not my humble pie, consumed with gusto. Conversation continued around me as if I were merely a piece of furniture. Dwight's business successes, Patricia's charity board endeavors, Myra's boutique studio expansion plans. Ethan contributed enthusiastically, animated in ways I rarely saw anymore, fully immersed in this real family that celebrated his perceived success and dismissed my quiet existence. At 9 o'clock I stood. "Thank you for the meal. I should be going." Dwight barely looked up. "Early night? Well, long drive back to... Where are you living these days, Eleanor? Downtown? Small place. Cozy, I'm sure." Patricia's smile was dismissive, a final cutting remark. "Good night, Eleanor." Ethan rose halfway, then settled back into his chair. "Bye, Mom." Not, "Let me walk you out." Not, "Drive safely." Just a quick dismissal, eager to return to his new, more glamorous reality. "Goodbye, Ethan," I said, pausing at the doorway, my gaze lingering on him for a moment. "Enjoy your new house." I walked to my sedan alone, no one accompanying me, no one watching from the window. I sat in the driver's seat, keying the ignition, but not turning it. My hands were steady, my breathing even. The auditor in me was already organizing the evening into categories, documenting evidence, building the case file. 7 years rent-free in my house. Tonight's complete betrayal. Dwight's hand on Ethan's shoulder, claiming him. I started the engine and pulled away from the curb. In my rearview mirror, the Preston mansion blazed with light and laughter. I had seen enough. The drive back took longer than usual, not because of traffic, but because I found myself stopping twice. Once at a gas station, just to sit under the harsh fluorescent lights, the mundane sounds of late-night commerce a strange comfort against the storm raging within me. Then again, at a park overlook, where the city's downtown glittered below, a sprawling tapestry of lights and shadows, each tiny spark representing a life, a story, a set of calculations of worth and dignity. My mind was working, sorting, categorizing, not with anger, but with something far colder, far more resolute. It was the detached analysis of a seasoned professional, sifting through data, identifying anomalies, preparing for the inevitable conclusion. I reached my apartment at 10:47 p.m., the building quiet, most residents already asleep in their own worlds. I unlocked my door, the familiar click a stark contrast to the silence of the Preston mansion, and set my keys in the bowl by the entrance. Documentation first, always. I moved directly to my desk, the laptop screen a beacon in the dim room. Pulling up the file I'd started on Monday, I added a new entry. November 23rd, Thursday, 6 p.m., 9 p.m. Location, Preston residence, Northwood. Present, Dwight Preston, Patricia Preston, Ethan Hayes, Myra Hayes, Eleanor Vance. I typed everything, every cutting remark, every dismissive glance, every moment of Ethan's silence. Dwight's comments about my car, Patricia's questions about my finances, Myra's thinly veiled contempt, Ethan's complete lack of defense, the down payment offer, Ethan's effusive gratitude, not to me, never to me, but to the man who had spent the evening systematically diminishing everything I was. The words flowed, filling 3 pages, clinical, precise, the way I would write an audit report on financial malfeasance. When I finished, it was past midnight. I saved the document, backed it up to 3 separate drives, then sat back in my chair, the hum of the computer a low thrum in the quiet room. 20 years of deliberately living beneath my means, teaching Ethan independence, fostering a spirit of self-reliance. 7 years of free housing, a substantial gift that had, it seemed, only taught him to take without gratitude, to expect without earning. And tonight's complete, undeniable betrayal. I pulled up my financial management software, the numbers a stark, irrefutable testament to my carefully guarded truth. Federal Financial Oversight Office salary, $50,000 monthly. 23 years at this level, 20 more before that at lower grades. Total career earnings over 40 years conservatively managed. Checking account, $127,000. Savings accounts, $418,000. Investment portfolio, $1,987,000. Retirement, 401k, $845,000. Total liquid assets, $377,000. The house where Ethan lived rent-free, $650,000 current value. Mortgage paid off 12 years ago. Total assets, $4,027,000. I stared at the numbers, a staggering sum, $4 million. My son thought it didn't exist. $4 million that could have prevented tonight's humiliation with a single sentence. But I had wanted to know who he really was. Now I did. Friday morning arrived with a gray, persistent rain, mirroring the somber mood that had settled over me. I made coffee, the rich aroma filling my small kitchen, and sat at my kitchen table, opening my laptop again. First search, State of Oregon Inheritance Law, Disinheritance Adult Children. The results were clear, unequivocal. Oregon allowed complete disinheritance. No requirement to leave anything to adult children. A properly executed will with explicit language would suffice. Second search, State of Oregon Eviction Law, Family Members. More complex, as expected. 30 days notice minimum. Legal occupation for 7 years might create complications. I'd need an attorney. Third search, Transfer on Death Deed, Oregon. Perfect. A Todd deed would transfer property ownership upon my death directly to named beneficiaries, bypassing probate. It could be revoked or changed any time while I lived. Ethan wouldn't inherit the house automatically. I could name anyone, any organization, any charity. He'd have nothing. I spent the afternoon organizing documents, a methodical process that brought a strange sense of calm. Property deed, tax records, financial statements. The 7 years of documentation showing Ethan had lived rent-free, paying zero toward the mortgage, utilities, or maintenance. His income tax returns, which I had helped him file until 3 years ago, clearly showed his substantial earnings. The rain intensified outside, a steady drumming against my window. I made a light lunch, barely tasting it, my mind consumed by the task at hand, then returned to my laptop. By evening, I had the framework, a two-pronged approach, both legally sound, both designed to ensure my intentions were unequivocally clear. 1. A new will, explicitly disinheriting Ethan with clear, concise language explaining why. Everything to charity, perhaps organizations supporting foster children, or educational opportunities for underprivileged youth, kids who actually needed help, unlike my son, who had squandered 7 years of advantages. 2. A transfer on death deed for the house, also to charity, or perhaps sold with proceeds to charity. Ethan would need to vacate within 30 days of my death. But first, I needed him out while I was still alive. Saturday morning, I dressed casually and drove past my house. Ethan's sporty coupe was in the driveway, Myra's luxury SUV beside it, lights on in the kitchen. They were home, probably discussing their new house, celebrating Dwight's generosity, their future secured by a man who had openly disrespected me. My house, my equity, my gift turned into a weapon against me. I drove back to my apartment and made a phone call to a colleague who had recently navigated a complex property dispute. Marcus, it's Eleanor. I need an attorney recommendation. Real estate and inheritance law. Someone thorough. Eleanor? Everything okay? He asked, a note of concern in his voice. Just planning ahead, I replied, my voice steady. Someone who doesn't mess around. He gave me a name, Vernon Price. I wrote it down, then opened my email. Vernon Price's website was professional, understated, 40 years experience, estate planning, property law, complex family situations. His office was in downtown, walking distance from my apartment. I drafted the email carefully, each word chosen with precision. Subject: consultation request. Estate planning and property matter. Mr. Price, I am seeking legal counsel regarding estate planning and a property matter involving family occupation. I am a 64-year-old federal employee with substantial assets and real property. I need to execute a comprehensive will, establish a transfer on death deed, and address the current occupation of my primary residence by family members. I have documentation prepared, and am ready to proceed quickly. Please advise your availability for an initial consultation. Regards, Eleanor Vance. I read it twice, checked for typos, and hit send. The email departed with a quiet sound. I sat back in my chair, coffee cooling beside me on the desk. Outside my window, the city moved through its Saturday routine. I had spent 40 years building financial security, 20 years hiding it to teach my son independence. 7 years providing free housing while he saved nothing and learned to despise me for appearing to have nothing. Last night, he'd sat silent while another man paid for his future. This morning, I'd started the process of removing every advantage I'd ever given him. My phone sat quiet on the desk. Ethan hadn't called, hadn't texted, probably didn't even think about how I'd gotten home, whether I was hurt, whether I'd eaten anything beyond the dinner I'd barely touched. I opened my financial software again, looked at the numbers one more time. $4 million, 40 years of careful planning. None of it would ever reach Ethan. I pulled up the file with my documentation. 3 parts now. Chronological, detailed, damning. Printed it. 3 copies. Put them in separate folders. 1 for my records, 1 for the attorney, 1 for backup. By noon, I'd organized everything an attorney would need. Property deed, 7 years of utility bills showing sole ownership, tax returns, the complete financial picture. The plan was simple, legally airtight, morally justified. Ethan had made his choice. Now I'd make mine. I closed my laptop and looked around my small apartment. The space I chose, the life I built, the resources I controlled. Monday, I'd likely hear from Vernon Price. We'd schedule a consultation. By next week, I'd have documents drafted. Ethan could have his new house. Dwight's generous gift. The life he'd chosen with his real family. He just wouldn't have mine. The weekend passed in a blur of careful preparation, a methodical gathering of every piece of evidence, every financial record, every document that would solidify my resolve and justify my actions. Bank statements, property deeds, retirement account summaries, all organized chronologically, cross-referenced by account type, a fortress of facts. When Vernon Price's assistant called Monday afternoon with an appointment slot for Wednesday morning, I was ready. Wednesday arrived cold and clear, a crisp autumn day that felt fitting for the gravity of the decisions I was about to formalize. Vernon Price's office occupied 2 floors of a sleek, glass-fronted building near Pioneer Courthouse Square, a professional but not ostentatious space. Leather chairs, organized shelving, the quiet efficiency of a place focused on substance over appearance. Vernon met me in the conference room, a man in his mid-40s, graying at the temples, with a direct handshake and an air of quiet competence. "Ms. Vance," he began, his voice calm and measured, "thank you for coming in. I understand that you need estate planning assistance." I set my leather portfolio on the polished conference table and opened it, revealing the meticulously organized stacks of documents. "Mr. Price," I began, my voice steady, devoid of any tremor, "I need to disinherit my son completely and permanently. Can Oregon law accomplish this?" He nodded, his expression unreadable. "Yes, it can. Oregon doesn't require parents to leave anything to adult children." He sat across from me, pen poised over a legal pad. "Tell me the situation." I removed my documentation, first the handwritten notes from Thanksgiving, then the bank statements showing my accounts, the property deed for the house, my current will leaving everything to Ethan, retirement summaries. I arranged them in organized stacks between us, a silent testament to my life's journey and its painful turning point. "My son showed me who he is when he thought I had nothing," I stated, my gaze meeting Vernon's directly. "Now that I'm certain of his character, he'll receive nothing." Vernon read through my documentation methodically, his eyes scanning each page with a practiced efficiency. Occasionally he made notes, asked clarifying questions, his brow furrowed in concentration. When he reached my financial summary, his eyebrows lifted slightly, a subtle but telling reaction. "You have substantial assets, Ms. Vance. The house alone is worth $650,000, paid off 12 years ago. My son has lived there rent-free for 7 years," I interjected, my voice calm, "while accumulating zero savings and learning to be embarrassed by me." "I see," Vernon said, setting the deed aside. "And your liquid assets?" $3.3 million in savings and investments, $800,000 in retirement accounts, I replied, sliding another document across the table. This shows his income over those 7 years. Combined with his wife's earnings, they should have saved over $1 million. They have nothing. Vernon nodded slowly, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You want this airtight? No loopholes, no opportunities for reversal." He pulled out a fresh legal pad and began outlining options for the house. He explained 2 approaches, a life estate or a transfer on death deed. The TOD deed, he advised, was cleaner, faster, harder to challenge. The property would automatically transfer to my chosen beneficiary upon my death, bypassing probate entirely. For liquid assets, a new will was straightforward. "Name any beneficiary," he explained, "and include explicit disinheritance language." "Who receives your estate?" Vernon asked, his pen hovering over the pad. I had considered this over the weekend, my mind sifting through possibilities. No family alternatives. I had no siblings, and my parents were long deceased. "I want the money to go to children who actually need it," I stated, my voice firm. "Kids from families without resources. The Portland Education Foundation provides scholarships to low-income students. Reputable, established, perfect for estate gifts." "That works," Vernon confirmed, making a note. "Children who have nothing will benefit from what my son took for granted." Vernon allowed himself a slight smile. "There's a certain poetry to that choice, Ms. Vance." "There's justice to it," I corrected, my gaze unwavering. He outlined the timeline. Draft new will in 1 week. Prepare TOD deed in 1 week. Notarization required with Joyce Hartman, a reputable notary in the building. Property appraisal recommended with Kevin Murphy, a licensed appraiser. Total timeline, 2 weeks to complete all documents. Once executed, Vernon emphasized, these documents are extremely difficult to challenge. Your federal position proves competence, but I recommend additional documentation. Dates, conversations, reasons for disinheritance. Also consider a cognitive assessment from your physician. It creates a medical record of competence at signing. I nodded. My annual federal employee health assessments are current, all normal. No cognitive issues. Perfect, he said. Bring those records to the signing. Over the next 2 weeks, I became intimately familiar with the process. Vernon sent drafts for review. I read each page carefully, my years of analyzing complex federal documents serving me well. I requested specific language changes, clarifications, additional provisions, ensuring every clause reflected my precise intentions. The property appraisal required coordination. I called Ethan on a Tuesday evening, my voice calm and businesslike. Ethan, I'm having the house appraised next Tuesday. The appraiser will need access. Appraised? Why? He asked, a note of surprise in his voice. Insurance purposes. Routine property valuation. Will you be home? No, I'll be at work. Myra might be there. This seems sudden. It's overdue, I replied, my voice firm. I'll coordinate with the appraiser. He'll be professional and quick. Okay, I guess that's fine, he conceded, still sounding puzzled. Kevin Murphy conducted the appraisal on schedule. I accompanied him. It was my property after all. Ethan wasn't home. Myra had left for her studio. Walking through the house felt strange, almost surreal. Ethan's furniture, Myra's decorative choices, their lives built in my space without payment or appreciation. Kevin measured rooms, photographed features, noted improvements. The appraisal came back at $650,000 fair market value. By mid-December, all documents were ready. Vernon scheduled the signing for a Wednesday afternoon. Joyce Hartman's notary office occupied a corner of the law firm's second floor. A small desk, an official seal mounted on the wall, filing cabinets of recorded documents. 2 witnesses, law firm staff, stood against the wall. Joyce reviewed my federal ID badge, verified my identity. She slid the new will across the desk. Ms. Vance, I need to verify you understand these documents. This will revoke all prior wills and directs your entire estate to the Portland Education Foundation. Do you understand? Completely, I affirmed. And this deed transfers your property to the same foundation upon your death. Your son currently residing there is not a beneficiary. You understand this? I do, I stated, my voice unwavering. That's my intention. Very well. Please sign here, here, and initial here. I signed with deliberate strokes, the pen moving smoothly across the pages, then the TOD deed. Joyce applied her seal, the stamp making a definitive sound that echoed in the quiet room. She handed me the documents. These are now in effect. The TOD deed needs county recording. The next morning, I personally walked the recorded TOD deed to the Multnomah County Recording Office. I wanted to see it entered into public record myself. The clerk processed it efficiently, provided a stamped copy with the official recording number. I held the document, read the stamp. Real now, permanent. The house would never be Ethan's. That afternoon, I returned to Vernon's office for our final meeting. All documents are executed and recorded, he confirmed. Your estate plan is now in effect. When do you plan to inform your son? He asked. Soon after the holidays, I replied. I want him to enjoy one more Christmas, believing he's getting millions. Vernon leaned back in his chair. That's actually remarkably restrained. Most clients in your situation act immediately. I'm not acting from rage, I explained. I'm acting from certainty. A few more weeks won't change anything. He nodded. Call if you need anything. And Ms. Vance, you've done this correctly. The documentation is thorough. The legal foundation's solid. I left his office carrying copies of every document. The originals were filed in Vernon's secure storage, with additional copies in my apartment safe. The die was cast. The path was clear. Christmas came and went, a blur of quiet solitude in my small apartment. Ethan sent a brief text, a generic holiday wish, devoid of any personal touch, no invitation to celebrate together, no acknowledgement of the Thanksgiving dinner that had irrevocably altered the course of our relationship. I spent Christmas Day organizing my files, reviewing my documentation, preparing for the inevitable confrontation that lay ahead. There was no joy in this meticulous preparation, only a grim determination, a sense of duty to myself and to the values I held dear. By early January, I was ready. The weight of the secret, once a burden, now felt like a shield, protecting me from the emotional fallout I knew was coming. I texted Ethan in early January, a brief, neutral message. Need to speak with you. Coffee Wednesday afternoon. Downtown cafe on 3rd Street. His response came hours later. A single word. Sure. What's this about? Better in person, I replied, keeping my message concise, offering no hint of the seismic shift that was about to occur in his life. Wednesday arrived, gray with a persistent rain, mirroring the somber mood that had settled over me. I reached the cafe first, selected a corner table near the window, a strategic position that allowed me to observe without being easily observed. I ordered black coffee, its bitter warmth a familiar comfort, and watched the street until Ethan appeared, walking quickly, shoulders hunched against the weather, his expression a mixture of curiosity and vague apprehension. He sat across from me, his confusion evident. What's going on, Mom? You sounded serious. I sipped my coffee, letting the moment settle, allowing the tension to build, a deliberate pause before the storm. Ethan, I began, my voice calm, steady, every word carefully chosen. I want to tell you about something I did 20 years ago, a decision about how to raise you. He frowned, a flicker of unease in his eyes. Okay. When you were 15, I continued, my gaze unwavering. I was making approximately $200,000 annually as a senior federal financial analyst. I had a substantial investment portfolio, significant savings, real assets. I could have given you anything. Private schools, a new car, college paid in full. His expression shifted, uncertain now, a dawning realization beginning to creep into his eyes. Instead, I went on, setting down my cup with a soft clink. I chose to live modestly, let you believe we had limited resources. I wanted you to learn independence, self-reliance, the value of work. I wanted to see who you'd become without the cushion of obvious wealth. Ethan's face paled, the color draining completely, leaving him looking ashen. What are you saying, Mom? I'm saying, I stated, my voice level, professional. I currently have $3.3 million in savings and investments, $800,000 in retirement accounts. I own the house where you live, $650,000 paid off. Total assets approximately $4 million. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications, shattering the carefully constructed reality he had always known. His hands gripped the table edge, knuckles white. You're joking. I'm telling you the truth, Ethan, I replied, my gaze unwavering. A truth I've hidden for 2 decades. The poverty you've been embarrassed by? Strategic. The modest apartment, the old car, the worn suits. Choices, not necessities. His mouth opened, then closed, no words forming. Why would you? He finally managed, his voice barely a whisper. To see who you'd become, I answered, my voice still level, devoid of accusation, simply stating a fact. To understand your character when you thought I had nothing. Thanksgiving showed me everything I needed to know. Thanksgiving? He stammered, his eyes wide with disbelief. That was you accepting another man's money without defending your mother. That was you sitting silent while the Prestons systematically humiliated me. That was you telling me to park around the corner because my car was embarrassing. Ethan's mouth opened again, closed. You did, I interrupted, my voice firm, and I documented it. Every word, every silence, every moment of betrayal. I removed a thick envelope from my jacket, its crisp edges a stark contrast to the crumpled napkins on the table. 2 weeks ago, I completed new estate documents. A will disinheriting you completely. A transfer on death deed, removing you as beneficiary of the house. Everything goes to the Portland Education Foundation, scholarships for children from low-income families. I slid the envelope across the table, its weight a physical manifestation of my decision. These are copies. The originals are executed, notarized, and recorded with Multnomah County, legally binding. Ethan stared at the envelope, as if it contained poison, his hands trembling as he reached for it. You can't, he whispered, his voice hoarse with disbelief. I can, I replied, my voice calm, resolute. Oregon law allows complete disinheritance of adult children. Vernon Price, my attorney, ensured everything is legally airtight. You showed me who you are, Ethan. Now you'll receive the inheritance you've earned. Nothing. His hands shook as he opened the envelope, scanning the documents, his face transforming from shock to disbelief. then to dawning horror. This is because of Thanksgiving? Because I didn't defend you enough? That's insane. It's because of 7 years rent-free in my house, I countered, my voice rising slightly, the years of suppressed pain finally finding an outlet. Because of every dismissive comment, every embarrassed glance, every moment you treated me like a failure. Thanksgiving wasn't the cause. It was the confirmation. Mom, please, he pleaded, his voice cracking. I've lived in a $900 apartment while you enjoyed $650,000 of my equity. I've driven a 15-year-old sedan while you and Myra accumulated nothing, despite combined income exceeding $1 million over 7 years. You had every advantage and learned only contempt. Ethan's breathing quickened, his chest heaving. I didn't know. How could I know if you never told me? Your ignorance of my resources doesn't excuse your treatment of who you thought I was, I stated, my voice firm, unwavering. You accepted Dwight's money over having any relationship with a mother you believed was poor. That tells me everything about your values. I can change, he insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. You're 64 years old, Ethan. I'm 32. I corrected myself, the stress affecting my precision. You're 32. Old enough to know better. Old enough to have shown basic respect regardless of my perceived finances. He pushed back from the table, stood, then sat again, his movements jerky, uncoordinated. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. I need to... He answered it, his voice a strained whisper. Not now, Myra. Her voice carried across the table, shrill and demanding. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear, furious, accusatory. Ethan's expression crumbled. She just told me she's got $4 million. No, I didn't know. Of course I didn't. He listened, his face paling further. She already did it. Legal documents recorded everything. Another pause, Myra's voice rising to a scream. Ethan pulled the phone from his ear, wincing. I need to go home, he said finally, his voice barely audible. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to discuss, I replied, standing, my coat straight on my shoulders. The documents are filed. My decision is final. Myra's parents, Dwight, knows lawyers. Let him hire them. Vernon Price specializes in estate law. Every document was prepared to withstand challenge. You can spend your savings on legal fees if you want. You'll lose. Ethan stood, swaying slightly, his eyes wide with a desperate plea. How can you do this? I'm your son, and you showed me exactly what that means to you. I countered, my voice firm, unwavering. The house is mine. The money is mine. None of it was ever yours. Despite 7 years of free living and a lifetime of expectations, you made your choices. Now live with them. I left the cafe, leaving him standing there, the documents scattered across the table, his phone pressed to his ear, Myra's voice cutting through the space between us. In my car, I sat for a moment before starting the engine. Across the street, through the cafe window, I could see Ethan collapsed back into his chair, head in his hands. I started the sedan and pulled into traffic. The first blow had landed. Now I'd wait to see how they'd respond. 10 days passed after the cafe meeting, each one a quiet testament to the storm that had been unleashed. I returned to my routine, the familiar rhythm of work and home, a welcome anchor in the turbulent waters of my emotional landscape. The quiet solitude of my apartment, once a chosen sanctuary, now felt like a necessary refuge. Ethan called twice, his number appearing on my screen, a silent plea I chose to ignore. I needed space, time for the dust to settle, for the initial shock to morph into something more substantial, something that would reveal the true depth of his understanding, or lack thereof. Then, the certified letter arrived, requiring my signature, its official weight a harbinger of the legal battle I knew was inevitable. The postal worker waited patiently while I signed the electronic pad, her presence a fleeting intrusion into my carefully guarded world. I thanked her, closed the door, and sat at my kitchen table, the thick envelope a stark white rectangle against the dark wood. I knew what it was before I opened it. The letterhead, Harrison & Cole, a prominent city law firm known for its aggressive litigation, confirmed my suspicions. I used a letter opener rather than tearing the envelope, a small act of control in a situation that felt increasingly out of my hands. Inside, 12 pages of legal filing. Ethan Hayes, plaintiff, versus Eleanor Vance, defendant. Contest of last will and testament. The claims were predictable. almost formulaic. Diminished capacity, undue influence, emotional instability evidenced by sudden disinheritance of only child. I photographed each page with my phone, a digital record of their desperate attempt to undo my decision, then called Vernon Price. "They filed," I said when he answered, my voice calm, steady. "Expected," he replied, his tone equally unruffled. "Can you come in tomorrow morning?" The next day, Vernon spread the filing across his conference table, a sea of legal jargon and accusations. He read it completely, occasionally making notes, his expression unimpressed, almost dismissive. "This is a Hail Mary pass, Ms. Vance," he said finally, looking up, his eyes meeting mine. "They're hoping to intimidate you into a settlement. Oregon law is clear. Competent adults can disinherit anyone for any reason. You have medical records, employment records, documented reasoning. This won't succeed, but it will take time and energy. Fight it completely," I stated, my resolve unwavering. "That's what I hoped you'd say. Let's bury them in documentation." Over the next week, I provided Vernon with everything he requested, a comprehensive arsenal of evidence that would leave no room for doubt regarding my mental acuity or the soundness of my decision. My security clearance renewal from 6 months ago, requiring extensive psychological screening, government background checks, annual physical exam results, all normal, no cognitive decline. Performance reviews from the federal agency, consistently excellent ratings, a testament to my sharp mind and meticulous attention to detail. Vernon compiled it all into a fortress of evidence, an impenetrable wall against their baseless claims. "Harrison and Cole is expensive," Vernon noted, a subtle hint in his voice. "Someone with resources is funding this." "Dwight Preston," I confirmed, my voice flat. "Ethan's father-in-law. That explains the aggressive approach. They're used to buying outcomes." The letters started arriving the second week of February, handwritten, Ethan's familiar script on cream-colored stationery. The first one was 3 pages of rambling apology, youthful foolishness, misunderstandings, promises to be better. The second referenced specific memories, teaching him to ride a bike at age 7, that a mother wouldn't abandon her son now. I read each letter completely, my heart a stone in my chest, filed them in a folder labeled Ethan, February 2025, and didn't respond to any. I recognized manipulation when I saw it, a desperate attempt to appeal to an emotional connection he had so readily discarded. Mid-February, my phone rang. An unknown number. "Eleanor Vance," I answered, my voice professional. "Eleanor, Dwight Preston. Let's talk man-to-man, businesswoman to businessman." His voice was smooth, confident, accustomed to getting his way. "What's your number?" I switched the phone to speaker, started recording. "My number? Everyone has a price, Eleanor. You want to leave money to charity? Fine. Name the amount you want for yourself, and we'll settle this." "This isn't about money, Mr. Preston," I replied, my voice calm, resolute. "It's about character. Ethan failed a test he didn't know he was taking." Dwight's voice hardened, a flicker of irritation in his tone. "Don't be naive. Everything's about money. You're just playing hard to get. 200,000? 3? You can't buy your way out of this," I stated, my voice firm. "Goodbye." I hung up, saved the recording, and emailed it to Vernon with a timestamp. The third call that week came from Myra directly, the first time she had ever called me. "Eleanor, it's Myra. I'm calling because I think we all need to take a step back. We're family. Family shouldn't fight like this." "We became strangers at Thanksgiving, Myra," I replied, my voice cold, distant. "This call doesn't change that." Her voice shifted, sweeter, almost pleading. "I'm trying to apologize. Can we have dinner? Talk properly?" "Your apology is motivated by money, not remorse," I stated, cutting through her pretense. "The answer is no." "You're being unreasonable. Ethan is your only child," she exclaimed, her voice rising in frustration. "And he showed me exactly what that means to him." "Goodbye, Myra." I hung up. She called back immediately. I declined the call. She called 3 more times that evening. I blocked her number. Vernon filed our counter-motion in late February. The documentation was overwhelming. 40 years of federal employment, annual competency reviews, medical records, my written analysis of Ethan's behavior from Thanksgiving onward, witness statements from colleagues about my professional capability. The estate planning process itself demonstrates competence, Vernon wrote in the filing. Ms. Vance researched Oregon law, consulted legal professionals, made informed decisions over multiple weeks, executed documents properly. These are not the actions of someone with diminished capacity. The hearing was scheduled for late February. I dressed in my work suit, professional, appropriate for a senior federal financial analyst. Vernon met me outside the courtroom. Stay calm. Answer questions directly. Show them exactly who you are, he advised. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Ethan sat at the plaintiff's table with his attorney from Harrison and Cole, a woman in her 40s, expensive suit, practiced confidence. Myra sat in the gallery behind them, her face a mask of anxious expectation. Dwight wasn't present, a telling absence. The judge was a woman in her 60s, Judge Patricia Morrison, according to the nameplate. Ethan's attorney presented first, claiming Eleanor's sudden disinheritance indicated emotional disturbance, arguing no rational parent would cut off their only child without cause, suggesting I'd been influenced or coerced, though she couldn't identify by whom. Vernon countered with documentation, passed my employment records to the judge, my security clearance renewal requiring psychological screening, annual physicals, performance reviews, my handwritten notes from Thanksgiving, dated and detailed. Ms. Vance is a senior federal financial analyst, Vernon stated. She passed a rigorous background check 6 months ago. She has documented her reasoning clearly. She planned this estate change methodically over months, consulting professionals, making informed decisions. This is textbook competence. Judge Morrison reviewed the materials, then looked at me. Ms. Vance, you changed your will after 40 years. Can you explain this decision? I met her eyes, spoke clearly. Yes, Your Honor. I kept my financial status private to teach my son independence. At Thanksgiving, I learned how he treats people he believes have nothing. His character, when tested, was found wanting. This seems like a harsh response to a single dinner, she observed, her voice neutral. It wasn't a single dinner, Your Honor. It was 7 years of taking without gratitude, culminating in one evening where he showed his true values. I documented everything. She studied me for a long moment. You appear quite competent to me, Ms. Vance. Thank you. She reviewed Vernon's submissions again, then Ethan's attorney's filings. The courtroom was silent, except for rustling paper. Finally, she looked up. I've reviewed the evidence. Ms. Vance is clearly competent. She has documented her reasoning. Oregon law permits disinheritance. The will stands as executed. Challenge dismissed. Ethan's face crumbled. His attorney gathered her papers quickly, professionally masking her defeat. Myra sat frozen in the gallery, her eyes wide with shock. Outside the courthouse, Ethan called across the lobby. Mom, please, just talk to me, 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. I paused for 1 second. Let him see me, hear him, acknowledge his presence. Then I continued walking. Vernon fell in beside me, creating a physical barrier. In my car, I sat for a moment before starting the engine. The legal challenge had failed. Dwight's money had bought them nothing but expensive legal fees and public documentation of Ethan's failure. I drove back to my apartment. The victory felt appropriate, not celebratory. The system had confirmed what I knew. My decision was sound, my reasoning valid, my actions legal. But I knew they wouldn't stop completely. The will was secure now, court-tested and approved. That left one remaining asset, the house where Ethan and Myra lived, rent-free. I suspected that would be their next battlefield. I was ready. 3 weeks passed after the court victory, a period of quiet consolidation, a return to the familiar rhythms of my life. I immersed myself in my work, completing quarterly audit reports, preparing complex analyses for congressional oversight, maintaining the meticulous routine that had always been my anchor. My colleagues noticed nothing different about me. I was the same senior financial analyst I'd been for decades. Methodical, thorough, reliable. But beneath the surface, a new sense of purpose had solidified, a quiet determination to see this painful chapter through to its rightful conclusion. Then, on a Tuesday evening in late March, I called Vernon Price. I want to reclaim my house, I stated, my voice calm and resolute. Vernon was quiet for a moment, a brief pause before he responded. The property where Ethan lives. The property I own, I clarified, where Ethan has lived without lease or payment for 7 years. Oregon law requires 60-day notice for no-cause termination of tenancy, Vernon explained, his voice professional, outlining the legal steps. You'll need to deliver written notice, document delivery, then file for eviction if he doesn't vacate voluntarily. Draft the notice, I instructed, my decision firm. Vernon prepared the document that week, a formal, legally precise notice to terminate tenancy. It stated that, effective April 1st, Ethan and Myra had 60 days to vacate the premises. No cause was required under Oregon law. It was simply the property owner exercising her rights. On April 1st, I drove to my house at 10 in the morning. Ethan's sporty coupe was gone. He would be at work. Myra's luxury SUV sat in the driveway, a silent testament to their continued presence. I knocked on my own front door, a strange, almost surreal act. Myra answered, confusion crossing her face. "Eleanor, what are you?" "I'm delivering legal notice," I stated, my voice devoid of emotion, and handed her the thick envelope. 60 days to vacate. You and Ethan need to be out by June 1st. She stared at the envelope, her face paling. Vacate? This is Ethan's house. This is my house, Myra, I corrected, my voice firm. I bought it 23 years ago, paid it off 12 years ago. Ethan has lived here rent-free by my permission, which I'm now withdrawing. Her face went white, a mixture of shock and anger. You can't just kick us out. We have rights. You have 60 days, I replied, my gaze unwavering. Read the notice. It explains everything. I turned to leave. You're making a mistake. Her voice rose, shrill with indignation. Dwight will fight this. I looked back, my eyes meeting hers. Dwight's money couldn't overturn the will. It won't stop a property owner from reclaiming her own house. June 1st. Be out. I walked to my car, photographed the house, noting the time and date for documentation, and drove away, leaving Myra standing in the doorway, the notice clutched in her hand. Vernon filed the forcible entry and detainer action in mid-April, exactly as required, when Ethan and Myra didn't respond to the notice. The court scheduled a hearing for mid-May. The hearing was procedural, quick, a formality that confirmed the legal soundness of my actions. I presented the property deed showing sole ownership, showed documentation that Ethan had never paid rent, had no lease, occupied by verbal permission only. I presented the notice to vacate, delivered April 1st. Ethan's new attorney, from a different firm, less expensive than Harrison and Cole, argued that 7 years of occupancy created some form of tenancy right. Judge Reynolds rejected it immediately. No lease, no rent, no documentation of any rental agreement. This is permissive occupancy, which the owner can terminate. 60-day notice was proper. I'm ordering the tenants to vacate by June 1st or face forcible removal. Ethan sat rigid in his seat, his face a mask of defeat. Myra wasn't present, probably couldn't face another courtroom defeat. Outside, Ethan approached me in the parking lot. His shoulders slumped, his eyes hollow. Where are we supposed to go? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. I unlocked my car door, my movements deliberate. That's not my concern. We can't afford first and last month's rent on a decent place, he continued, desperation creeping into his voice. Not with the down payment gone to Dwight's lawyers. You had 7 years of free housing to save money, Ethan, I replied, my voice firm, unwavering. You saved nothing. Those are your choices. Live with them. You're enjoying this, aren't you? He accused, his voice laced with bitterness. Watching us suffer. I met his eyes, my gaze steady. I'm not enjoying it. I'm implementing it. There's a difference. I drove away. In my rearview mirror, Ethan stood alone in the parking lot, defeated, a solitary figure against the backdrop of the courthouse. The days crawled toward June 1st, each one a slow march toward the inevitable. I heard through indirect channels, a colleague knew someone who knew Myra's sister, that they'd found a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in a less desirable neighborhood. Rent, $2,200 monthly, no down payment assistance from Dwight anymore. Apparently, he'd tired of funding their legal losses. June 1st arrived on a Sunday. I drove to the house at noon. A moving truck sat in the driveway, nearly empty. Ethan and Myra were carrying the last boxes out, their movements slow, heavy with resignation. I parked on the street and waited, a silent observer. Let them see me watching. Let them understand this was real, final, enforced. The moving truck departed at 2:00. Ethan's sporty coupe followed it. Myra's luxury SUV left minutes later. I waited another hour, ensuring they were truly gone, then approached the house. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the house was empty except for scuff marks on the floors, nail holes in the walls, the ghost impressions of furniture on the carpet. They'd taken everything, left nothing. I walked through each room. The bedroom where Ethan had slept for 7 years, the kitchen where Myra had cooked meals in my house without appreciation, the living room where they'd built their life on my generosity while learning to despise me. In the master bedroom, I found a note on the floor, Ethan's handwriting. "You won. Are you happy now, Mom?" I picked it up, read it twice, then put it in my pocket. I wasn't happy. Happiness wasn't the goal. Justice was the goal. Consequences were the goal, teaching that free housing and inherited wealth weren't rights, but privileges that could be withdrawn. I locked all the doors, checked all the windows. The house was secure, empty, mine again. My phone buzzed. Text from Vernon. "Confirm they're out. Property is yours. Well done." I stood on the front porch, keys in hand. 7 years of free housing ended with a court order. Ethan had called it cruel. I called it consequences. Somewhere in the city, Ethan and Myra were unpacking in whatever apartment they could afford on short notice. Dwight's money had dried up after 2 legal defeats. They'd have to manage on their own earnings now, pay their own rent, build their own security without a wealthy father-in-law or a generous mother they'd learned too late to appreciate. I got in my car and drove back to my apartment. The house was mine again. The inheritance was secured. The legal battles were over. Ethan had nothing left to take, nothing left to contest, nothing left to expect. I'd spent 20 years teaching him independence, 7 years giving him advantages, 3 months showing him consequences. The education was complete. 3 weeks passed after the eviction hearing, the June 1st deadline approaching with an almost palpable tension. I maintained my routine, a quiet observer, waiting to see if Ethan and Myra would leave voluntarily or require sheriff enforcement. My heart, though resolute, held a flicker of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, they would choose the path of dignity, of accepting the consequences of their actions without further resistance. Then, on a Tuesday evening in late May, my apartment buzzer rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, my social circle having narrowed considerably in recent months. "Yes?" I answered, my voice cautious. "Mom, it's me, Ethan." His voice came through the intercom, subdued, almost hesitant, a stark contrast to the confident, often demanding tone I had grown accustomed to. "Can I come up, please? Just 10 minutes?" I considered refusing, the urge to protect my newfound peace a strong one, but something in his voice, a raw vulnerability I hadn't heard in years, made me press the button instead. "Why?" I asked, my voice still guarded. "Because I need to talk to you face to face, not through lawyers, just us." I paused, a long, drawn-out moment of internal debate, then buzzed him up. Ethan appeared at my door, looking diminished, almost fragile. His clothing, though clean, seemed worn, his eyes tired, shadowed with a weariness that went beyond mere physical exhaustion. His shoulders were curved inward, a posture of defeat I had never seen in him before. This wasn't the confident, slightly arrogant man from Thanksgiving. This was a shadow of him, a man burdened by the weight of his choices. He stood in my doorway, not presuming entry, a subtle but significant shift in his usual demeanor. "You have 10 minutes, I stated, stepping aside, allowing him to enter. He moved slowly, hesitantly, remaining standing near the entrance, a respectful distance between us. I crossed my arms, maintaining the physical and emotional boundary I had so painstakingly erected. "We found an apartment," he began, his voice quiet, almost a whisper. $2,200 a month. "It's small, but it's what we can afford now. Problem is, it's not ready until mid-June. We need 2 more weeks." "You had 60 days, I replied, my voice firm, unwavering. "You chose to wait until the deadline approached." He looked at his hands, clasped tightly together. "We were trying to find something better. Everything costs more than we expected. The legal fees from fighting you, they wiped out our savings." "Those were your choices, Ethan," I countered, my voice devoid of sympathy, simply stating a fact. "Poor financial planning doesn't obligate me to extend deadlines." Ethan nodded slowly, a flicker of understanding in his tired eyes. Dwight gave us $50,000, but he won't give more. He's furious about the court losses. He said, "You're too stubborn, and we're on our own now." I allowed myself a thin, almost imperceptible smile. He tried to buy a solution. When that failed, he withdrew support. Sounds familiar. Conditional assistance based on success. How does it feel being on the receiving end? Point taken, Ethan said, his voice barely audible. What about Myra? How's she handling this? His expression darkened, a fresh wave of pain washing over his face. She blames me for everything. She says I should have known you had money, that I should have fixed this. She calls me a failure daily. Those are the same words she used about me at Thanksgiving, Ethan. I reminded him, my voice soft but firm. You said nothing then. Now you understand what silence costs. I do, he whispered, his gaze meeting mine for the first time, a raw honesty in his eyes. Too late, but I do. We stood in silence, the hum of the city's evening traffic filtering through my window, a distant, indifferent backdrop to our private drama. Ethan shifted his weight, an exhausted sigh escaping his lips. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said finally, his voice regaining a touch of its former strength. I'm not asking you to change the will. I understand those are gone. I'm asking for 2 weeks. That's all. Just 14 more days. I gave you 7 years, I stated, my voice firm. That's 2,555 days of free housing. You're asking for 14 more. The answer is no. Mom, please, he pleaded, a desperate edge to his voice. The court order says June 1st. That deadline stands. Be out by then, or the sheriff enforces it. This conversation is over. Ethan looked at me directly, his eyes searching mine, a profound sadness in their depths. I came here knowing you'd probably say no. I came anyway because I had to try, not for the house or the money, just to see if there's anything left between us worth saving. Thanksgiving answered that question, I replied, my voice gentle but firm. He nodded, a slow, painful acknowledgement, and moved toward the door, his hand resting on the knob. For what it's worth, Mom, I'm sorry. Not about losing the money, about disappointing you. If you'd shown this awareness at Thanksgiving, none of this would have happened, I stated, the truth hanging heavy in the air. I know, he whispered, his voice thick with regret, but I didn't, and now I'm living with it. Yes, you are, I replied, my voice softening slightly, a hint of the mother I once was, but quickly receding. Goodbye, Ethan. He left without another word, the click of the door a final punctuation mark to our conversation. I stood at the closed door, listening to his footsteps fade down the hallway, then walked to my window, watching him emerge onto the street below, get into his sporty coupe. He sat there for a long moment, his head bowed, before starting the engine. I closed the curtain, the finality of the gesture a heavy weight in my heart. Over the next few days, I drove past the house occasionally, not stalking, but verifying. I parked a block away, observed for 10 minutes, noted progress. A rental truck on Wednesday, boxes loaded Thursday, furniture carried out Friday. On May 30th, I watched from my car as Ethan and Myra made their final trips. Myra slammed the trunk repeatedly, her movements sharp with anger. Ethan moved mechanically, carrying boxes without expression, a ghost in his own life. They didn't see me watching. By evening, the truck was gone. May 31st. My phone buzzed. Text from Ethan. We're out. House is empty. Keys are on kitchen counter. I typed a single word. Acknowledged. No response came. None was needed. June 1st arrived on a Sunday. I drove to the house at noon. Let myself in with my original key. The keys Ethan mentioned lay on the kitchen counter, 2 copies tagged with a hardware store label. I walked through empty rooms. Scuff marks on floors. Nail holes in walls. Carpet indentations where furniture had stood for 7 years. The ghost architecture of their life in my space. In the master bedroom, I found something they'd missed. A small framed photo fallen behind where the dresser had been. Ethan and Myra on their wedding day 7 years ago. Young, hopeful, certain of their future. I picked it up, studied it for a moment, then set it on the windowsill. Not my concern anymore. I locked all the doors, checked all the windows. The house was secure, empty, mine again. Outside, I stood on the porch, keys in hand. 7 years of occupation ended. Ethan had texted compliance. Moved out without sheriff enforcement. Left quietly. The education was complete. The consequences delivered. The justice achieved. I got in my car and drove back to my apartment. Behind me, the house stood empty, waiting for whatever came next. Somewhere in the city, Ethan and Myra unpacked in their cramped apartment, adjusted to paying rent, learned to live without advantages they'd taken for granted. That wasn't my concern either. I'd spent 20 years teaching Ethan independence, 7 years giving him opportunities, 6 months showing him consequences. The lesson was over. Whether he learned from it was his choice now, not mine. I parked in my apartment garage, rode the elevator up, unlocked my door. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. My space, my peace, my life undisturbed by people who'd learned to value wealth over character. I made dinner, ate at my small table, and felt something I hadn't felt since before Thanksgiving. Satisfied, not happy, not triumphant, just finished. The story had reached its natural conclusion. June passed into July with the quiet grace of a season changing, bringing with it a renewed sense of purpose and a profound inner peace. I returned to my full work routine at the federal agency, immersing myself in the intricate details of quarterly audits and preparing comprehensive reports for congressional oversight. My colleagues, ever observant, noticed nothing outwardly different about me. I was the same senior financial analyst I'd been for decades. Methodical, thorough, reliable, a pillar of quiet competence. But internally, a profound shift had occurred. The weight of unspoken expectations, the burden of a carefully guarded secret, had lifted, replaced by a lightness of spirit I hadn't realized I was missing. My life, once a complex tapestry woven with threads of sacrifice and hidden intentions, was now simpler, cleaner, aligned with a clarity of purpose that felt deeply satisfying. The house, my house, stood empty through June, a silent monument to a chapter closed. I consulted with a trusted real estate agent, a woman named Sarah Jenkins, known for her discretion and efficiency. Market value had held steady at $650,000, a testament to its solid construction and desirable location. I listed it in early July, and to my quiet satisfaction, it sold within 3 weeks. A cash buyer, no complications, no drawn-out negotiations. The closing costs were minimal, netting me $640,000, a substantial sum that would now serve a purpose far beyond what I had originally envisioned. I never visited the house again after June 1st. Sarah handled everything: inspections, minor repairs, staging, showings. When the sale closed in late July, I signed the necessary documents in Vernon Price's office, accepted the check, and completed the transaction without ever stepping foot on the property again. The money transferred seamlessly to my account, $640,000 that would never reach Ethan, a tangible representation of the consequences he had earned. I had decided weeks earlier where it would go, a decision rooted in the deepest part of my being, a desire to transform pain into purpose. The Portland Education Foundation occupied a modest office building in the Pearl District, an organization I had quietly researched for years, admiring their unwavering commitment to empowering young minds. I scheduled a meeting with their director, Margaret Chen, for early August. "Ms. Vance, thank you for coming in," she greeted me warmly, her handshake firm and genuine. "Your donation inquiry was intriguing." I had outlined my intention in the initial email, a brief but clear statement of purpose. Now, I explained fully, my voice calm and steady, detailing the journey that had led me to her office. "I'm donating the proceeds from a property sale, $640,000. I want it used for college scholarships for students from low-income families. Full 4-year funding for as many students as the amount allows." Margaret's expression shifted from professional interest to genuine surprise, her eyes widening slightly. "That's remarkably generous, Ms. Vance. May I ask what inspired this?" I met her gaze, a quiet strength in my eyes. "I believe in giving opportunities to young people who will appreciate them, students who understand the value of education because they've had to fight for it, who see it not as a given, but as a hard-won privilege." She nodded slowly, a thoughtful expression on her face. "We could fund approximately 15 full scholarships with this amount, 4 years each. Tuition, books, basic living expenses at Oregon public universities. 15 lives changed." "That's sufficient," I replied, a sense of profound satisfaction settling over me. We worked through the details over the next hour. The foundation would manage the scholarship selection and distribution. My name would remain confidential. No publicity, no recognition. The scholarships would be awarded based purely on need and merit, a true reflection of the values I sought to uphold. Would you like updates on the recipients? Margaret asked, her curiosity evident. Many donors enjoy seeing the impact. No, I replied, my voice firm. I trust your judgment in selecting deserving students. Beyond that, I don't need to know. She studied me curiously. This is unusual. Most major donors want involvement or acknowledgement. I'm not most donors, I stated, a faint smile touching my lips. The money has a purpose now. That's acknowledgement enough. I signed the donation paperwork, transferred the funds, and left with a simple receipt. $640,000 redirected from a son who had wasted advantages to 15 students who would earn them. A quiet act of profound justice. The letter arrived 3 weeks later. A formal acknowledgement from the foundation. 15 scholarships funded. Names withheld per my request, but brief descriptions included. First-generation college students, foster care survivors, children of single parents working multiple jobs, young people who understood struggle and valued opportunity. I read the letter once, filed it in my desk drawer, and didn't look at it again. September brought a return to routine, the quiet rhythm I preferred. I heard nothing from Ethan. No calls, no texts, no letters. The silence was mutual, and, I realized, entirely appropriate. Through indirect channels, a colleague's friend knew Myra's sister, I learned fragments of their new reality. Ethan and Myra were in their small apartment, their marriage strained but intact. Ethan still worked his tech job. Myra still managed her fitness studio. They paid their rent, managed their bills, lived without safety nets or wealthy benefactors. They were learning what independence actually meant, not as a philosophical concept, but as a daily, tangible reality. I felt no satisfaction hearing this, no triumph, just a quiet confirmation that consequences were real and were being faced. One afternoon in late September, I sat at my desk, reviewing audit reports, when Marcus stopped by my cubicle. "Eleanor, you seem different lately," he observed, a thoughtful expression on his face, more settled maybe. I looked up from my computer, a faint smile touching my lips. "Do I? Yeah, can't put my finger on it, but whatever was bothering you last year seems resolved. Some situations required attention," I replied, my voice calm. "They've been addressed." He nodded, understanding I wouldn't elaborate. "Good for you, Eleanor. Life's too short to carry burdens we don't need." After he left, I considered his observation. Was I different? Perhaps. I had removed toxic relationships, enforced boundaries, ensured my resources would serve worthy purposes. The weight of disappointed expectations was gone, replaced by a quiet certainty. I returned to my audit report. Numbers aligned, expenditures tracked, federal funds properly accounted for. The work I'd done for 40 years, the work that gave my life structure and meaning, now felt even more significant, untainted by personal turmoil. That evening, I made dinner in my small kitchen, ate at my small table, watched the news briefly, then read financial journals until bedtime. The same routine I'd maintained for decades, but cleaner now. No calls from Ethan asking for favors, no performance of poverty to teach lessons, no waiting for character development that never came. Just my life lived on my terms, by my values. The story people would tell, if anyone told it, would be simple. An analyst, 64 years old, had made decisions about her estate. Those decisions were executed legally, upheld by courts, and resulted in charitable contributions benefiting deserving youth. Clean, professional, principled. The story Ethan would tell, if he told it, would be different. But that narrative wasn't mine to control or concern myself with. I'd given him 20 years of hidden advantages, 7 years of free housing, multiple chances to demonstrate character. He'd shown me who he was. I'd responded accordingly. The scales were balanced, the accounts settled, the audit complete. October arrived with early rain, a gentle patter against my window that brought with it a sense of renewal, a quiet washing away of the past. I walked to work when the weather permitted, enjoying the crisp air and the vibrant colors of the changing leaves, a small ritual that grounded me. On days when the rain was heavier, I drove. my reliable sedan navigating the familiar streets with ease. My routine, once a shield against emotional vulnerability, had now become a source of profound comfort and stability. The house, my former house, was someone else's home now, a new family building their own memories within its walls. My will was filed with Vernon Price, legally sound, court-tested, an unassailable testament to my final wishes. 15 students would begin college next fall with full funding, their futures brightened by a decision born of both pain and purpose. Everything I'd intended to accomplish was done, the intricate threads of my plan meticulously woven into a tapestry of consequence and compassion. One evening, having finished the day's work from home, I closed my laptop, the soft click echoing in the quiet room. Outside my window, the city lights sparkled in the damp darkness, a million tiny beacons against the vast expanse of the night sky. Somewhere in this sprawling metropolis, my son struggled with consequences he'd earned, navigating a new reality stripped of the advantages he had once taken for granted. Somewhere else, 15 young people prepared for opportunities they'd been given, their dreams fueled by a generosity they would never trace back to me. I felt no need to know more than that. The details of their struggles or triumphs were no longer my concern. My role in their lives, for better or worse, was complete. Tomorrow would bring more audits, more reports, more routine. And that, I realized, was exactly what I wanted. The story was over. The justice was done. The rest was simply living. My days unfolded with a serene predictability, each moment a quiet affirmation of the choices I had made. I found solace in the simple pleasures, a perfectly brewed cup of tea in the morning, the satisfying completion of a complex financial analysis, a quiet evening spent reading a good book. The emotional turbulence that had once defined my relationship with Ethan had receded, leaving behind a calm, clear space within me. It wasn't a void, but rather a fertile ground for new growth, for a deeper connection with myself and with the world around me. I often thought of the 15 students, their faces unknown to me, their stories a mystery, yet I felt a profound connection to them, a sense of having contributed to something meaningful, something that would ripple outwards, touching lives in ways I could never fully comprehend. This was my legacy now, not a material inheritance, but a legacy of opportunity, of hope, of earned possibility. The silence from Ethan was absolute, a stark contrast to the years of intermittent calls and texts, often laced with subtle requests or veiled criticisms. It was a silence I had once dreaded, fearing it as a sign of complete estrangement. Now, it felt like a necessary boundary, a space for both of us to heal, to redefine our individual paths. I knew deep down that he was learning lessons that no amount of inherited wealth could ever teach. He was experiencing the raw, unvarnished reality of self-reliance, the true weight of responsibility. And while my heart ached for the son I had lost, the son who had chosen convenience over character, I also held a quiet hope that this crucible of experience would, in time, forge him into the man I had always envisioned. It was a hope I held gently, without expectation, understanding that his journey was now his own. My apartment, once a stage for my carefully constructed facade, was now simply my home, a sanctuary of authenticity. The second-hand furniture, the modest decor, the quiet simplicity, all were now genuine reflections of my chosen lifestyle, not a performance. I found a deep contentment in this unburdened existence, a freedom from the need to impress, to conceal, to manipulate. The spiritual aspect of my journey had deepened, a quiet understanding that true wealth lay not in accumulated possessions, but in integrity, in purpose, in the courage to live by one's deepest values, even when those values demanded painful sacrifices. I had faced my greatest fear, the potential loss of my son's affection, and emerged, not unscathed, but whole, grounded in a truth that was undeniably mine. As the year drew to a close, I often reflected on the path I had chosen, the difficult decisions I had made. There were moments, fleeting and tender, when I remembered Ethan as a child, his laughter echoing in my mind, his small hand clutching mine. Those memories, once tinged with sadness, now held a bittersweet quality, a reminder of the love that had once been, and the complex journey that had led us to this point. I knew that some might judge my actions as harsh, even cruel. But I also knew, with an unwavering certainty, that I had acted from a place of profound love, a love that sought to teach, to empower, to awaken a dormant strength. The audit was complete, the account settled, and in the quiet solitude of my heart, I found a profound and lasting peace. The new year dawned, crisp and cold, carrying with it the promise of fresh beginnings, a sentiment that resonated deeply within me. My life had found a new equilibrium, a quiet rhythm that was both comforting and profoundly fulfilling. The legal battles were firmly in the past, the echoes of courtroom arguments and legal filings fading into the distant hum of memory. My will, now unassailable, stood as a testament to my convictions, and the house, once a source of both joy and pain, was now a distant memory, its sale proceeds actively transforming lives through the Portland Education Foundation. I often thought of the 15 students, their names unknown, their faces unseen, yet their potential now unlocked by a decision born of both heartbreak and unwavering principle. It was a quiet satisfaction, a deep-seated sense of purpose that permeated my days. My work at the federal agency continued with its usual intensity, the complex world of financial oversight, a welcome intellectual challenge. I found a renewed vigor in my responsibilities, my mind sharper, my focus clearer, unburdened by the emotional weight that had once shadowed my personal life. Colleagues still sought my advice, respecting my meticulous approach and my ability to uncover hidden truths. I was Eleanor Vance, the senior financial analyst, a woman of quiet competence and unwavering integrity. The facade of modesty I had once maintained for Ethan's benefit was now simply my authentic self, a reflection of my chosen values rather than a strategic deception. This alignment of my inner and outer worlds brought a profound sense of liberation, of freedom to simply be. The silence from Ethan remained unbroken, a testament to the finality of our separation. I no longer checked my phone with a flicker of hope or dread, no longer anticipated a call or a text. That chapter was closed, its pages turned. Through the same indirect channels, I occasionally heard snippets of news. Ethan and Myra were still in their small apartment, navigating the complexities of their new, unprivileged life. Their marriage, I gathered, remained strained, a fragile bond tested by the harsh realities of financial independence. Ethan continued his tech job, Myra her fitness studio, both now fully responsible for their own expenses, their own future. There was no triumph in these reports, no sense of vindication, only a quiet acknowledgement that the consequences I had set in motion were indeed playing out, shaping their lives in ways I could only imagine. I spent my evenings in quiet contemplation, often reading, sometimes simply sitting by my window, watching the city lights. My spiritual journey had deepened, evolving beyond the structured beliefs of my youth into a more personal, intuitive understanding of connection, purpose, and the intricate dance of cause and effect. I meditated on the nature of forgiveness, not as an act of absolution for Ethan, but as a release for myself, a shedding of the lingering resentment that could, if left unchecked, poison my own peace. It was a slow, deliberate process, a gentle unfolding of the heart, allowing me to acknowledge the pain without letting it define me. I realized that true forgiveness was not about forgetting, but about choosing to carry the burden of the past with grace, transforming its lessons into wisdom. My apartment, once a symbol of my strategic poverty, was now a cherished sanctuary, a space filled with objects that held meaning, not monetary value. Each piece of furniture, each book on my shelf, each photograph on my wall, told a story of a life lived with intention, a life built on principles rather than possessions. I found immense joy in the simplicity, the uncluttered clarity of my surroundings. It was a physical manifestation of my inner state, a reflection of the emotional and spiritual decluttering I had undergone. This was my haven, a place where I could truly be myself, unburdened by external expectations or the need to perform. As the seasons turned, bringing the vibrant greens of spring and the golden hues of summer, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the path I had chosen, however painful it had been. The decision to disinherit Ethan, to reclaim my assets and redirect them to a cause far greater than personal gain, had been the most difficult of my life. Yet, it had also been the most liberating. It had forced me to confront uncomfortable truths, to redefine my understanding of love, family, and legacy. I had learned that true love sometimes demands the courage to set boundaries, to allow others to face the consequences of their choices, even when it breaks your heart. And in that difficult lesson, I had found a strength and a clarity that transcended any material wealth. My life, once defined by a secret, was now defined by purpose, integrity, and a quiet, unwavering peace. The months that followed the finalization of my estate plan and the sale of the house settled into a rhythm of profound tranquility. It was a peace I had yearned for, a quiet contentment that permeated every aspect of my existence. My work at the federal agency continued to be a source of intellectual engagement, a place where my meticulous nature and analytical skills were valued and utilized. I found a deep satisfaction in ensuring accountability and transparency in public spending, a reflection of the very principles I had fought to uphold in my personal life. The office environment, with its structured tasks and clear objectives, offered a welcome contrast to the emotional complexities I had navigated. I often thought of the Portland Education Foundation, imagining the 15 students whose lives would be irrevocably altered by the scholarships. I pictured them, young and eager, embarking on their college journeys, their minds alight with possibility. Though I would never know their names or witness their individual triumphs, I felt a profound connection to their potential, a sense of having planted seeds that would blossom into a brighter future. This act of giving, born from a place of deep personal pain, had transformed into a wellspring of quiet joy, a testament to the redemptive power of purpose. It was a spiritual offering, a way to transmute my sorrow into something beautiful and enduring. The absence of Ethan and Myra from my daily life, once a gaping wound, had slowly, gradually, become a quiet space. There were no more calls filled with veiled requests, no more strained holiday gatherings, no more subtle judgments about my perceived status. This void, initially unsettling, had evolved into a sanctuary of self-discovery. I found myself rediscovering old hobbies, delving deeper into my passion for classical music, spending more time in nature, exploring the hiking trails that wound through the hills surrounding the city. These were simple pleasures, yet they brought a richness and depth to my life that had been overshadowed by the complexities of my secret. I continued my practice of quiet contemplation, often reflecting on the nature of detachment. It wasn't about indifference, I realized, but about releasing the need to control outcomes, particularly in the lives of others. My journey with Ethan had been a profound lesson in this, teaching me that while I could offer guidance, opportunities, and even consequences, I could not force growth or dictate character. His path was his own, and my peace lay in accepting that, in releasing the emotional entanglement that had bound us in a cycle of expectation and disappointment. This detachment was not a severing of love, but a redefinition of it, allowing me to hold him in my heart without being consumed by his choices. My apartment, once a carefully curated stage, now felt like a true home, a reflection of my authentic self. The worn books on my shelves, the antique pieces I had lovingly restored, the simple, functional kitchen, each element spoke of a life lived with intention and integrity. There was a quiet dignity in its simplicity, a sense of belonging that transcended material possessions. It was a space where I could truly be, unburdened by pretense or the need to impress. This physical environment mirrored my internal state, a calm and uncluttered sanctuary where my spirit could thrive. As the seasons continued their gentle cycle, I found myself embracing the quiet solitude of my life with a profound sense of gratitude. The journey had been arduous, marked by moments of deep pain and difficult decisions. Yet, through it all, I had remained true to my core values, to the principles of integrity, self-reliance, and purposeful living. I had learned that true strength lies not in avoiding hardship, but in facing it with courage and conviction. And in the aftermath of my personal storm, I had discovered a profound and lasting peace, a quiet joy that resonated deep within my soul. My story, once a secret burden, had transformed into a testament to the enduring power of truth and the quiet triumph of the human spirit. The passage of time, with its gentle, relentless flow, continued to weave new patterns into the fabric of my life. Months turned into a year, and the sharp edges of past pain began to soften, smoothed by the steady rhythm of my days. and the profound sense of purpose that now guided me. My work at the federal agency remained a constant, a grounding force that provided intellectual stimulation and a sense of contribution. I continued to excel, my reputation for thoroughness and integrity unwavering, a quiet testament to the strength I had cultivated over decades. The office, once a place where I maintained a subtle distance between my professional persona and my hidden personal life, now felt like a seamless extension of my authentic self. I often allowed my thoughts to drift to the students benefiting from the scholarships, imagining the ripple effect of their education. Each success story, each mind open to new possibilities, felt like a quiet victory, a testament to the enduring power of investment in human potential. It was a form of spiritual wealth, far more valuable than any material accumulation, a legacy that transcended my own lifetime. This connection to a larger purpose, to the betterment of lives I would never personally touch, filled me with a profound sense of contentment, a quiet joy that resonated deep within my soul. It was a reminder that even from moments of profound personal sorrow, something beautiful and meaningful could emerge. The indirect reports about Ethan and Myra became less frequent, fading into the background noise of the city. I no longer actively sought them out, nor did I recoil from them. Their lives, once so intertwined with mine, had truly become separate, their struggles and triumphs now entirely their own. I understood that they were navigating the harsh realities of self-sufficiency, learning lessons that perhaps only experience could teach. My heart, while no longer burdened by expectation or disappointment, still held a quiet space for Ethan, a mother's enduring, if redefined, love. It was a love that wished him well, not for my sake, but for his own, hoping that he would eventually find his way to a deeper understanding of character and true value. My personal life, once centered around the complex dance of secrecy and observation, had blossomed into a tapestry of quiet joys. I cultivated new friendships, connecting with individuals who appreciated my authentic self, unburdened by the pretense of my past. We shared conversations about books, art, philosophy, and the simple beauty of everyday life. These connections, built on mutual respect and genuine understanding, enriched my existence in ways I hadn't realized were possible. I found immense satisfaction in these unpretentious relationships, a stark contrast to the conditional affections I had once experienced. My apartment remained my sanctuary, a testament to the power of conscious choice. It was a space that reflected my values: simplicity, functionality, and a deep appreciation for beauty in the ordinary. I spent hours tending to my small collection of houseplants, their vibrant green a constant reminder of growth and resilience. The quiet evenings, once filled with the weight of unspoken truths, were now dedicated to personal pursuits, to learning, to reflection, to simply being. This intentional living, free from the external pressures and internal conflicts of my past, brought a profound sense of harmony and inner peace. As the seasons continued their graceful dance, I often found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought me to this point. It had been a path fraught with pain, marked by difficult decisions and profound revelations. Yet, it had also been a journey of immense growth, of self-discovery, and of ultimately finding a deeper, more authentic connection to myself and to the world. I had learned that true strength lies not in controlling others, but in mastering oneself, not in accumulating wealth for its own sake, but in using it for purposeful good. My story, once a private struggle, had become a testament to the enduring power of integrity, the quiet triumph of the human spirit, and the profound peace that comes from living a life aligned with one's deepest truths. The quiet hum of my life continued, a steady, comforting melody that resonated with purpose and peace. Each day unfolded with a gentle predictability, a testament to the deliberate choices I had made and the boundaries I had so carefully established. My work at the federal agency remained a cornerstone of my existence, providing intellectual stimulation and a sense of contributing to the greater good. I found immense satisfaction in the meticulous nature of my tasks, in the clarity of numbers and the unwavering logic of financial oversight. It was a world where truth, however complex, could always be uncovered, a stark contrast to the veiled realities of my past personal life. I often thought of the Portland Education Foundation, a beacon of hope for so many young individuals. The image of those 15 students, their futures now brighter, their paths widened, brought a quiet warmth to my heart. I imagined their excitement, their dedication, their gratitude for an opportunity they might otherwise never have had. This act of giving, born from a place of profound personal re-evaluation, had become a source of deep spiritual fulfillment. It was a reminder that even in the face of disappointment, there was always the potential for redemption, for transforming personal pain into collective good. This was my legacy, not etched in stone, but woven into the fabric of countless lives. The complete silence from Ethan and Myra was now simply a part of my new normal. It was neither a source of pain, nor a cause for concern. Their journey was their own, and I had released myself from the burden of their choices. I understood that true growth often comes from facing adversity, from learning to stand on one's own feet without the cushion of unearned privilege. While a part of me, the mother in me, still held a quiet hope for Ethan's eventual understanding and transformation, I no longer allowed that hope to dictate my own peace or define my sense of self-worth. My love for him, though redefined, remained, but it was now a love that honored my own boundaries and values. My social circle had expanded, filled with individuals who appreciated my authentic self. Unburdened by the pretense of my past, I found joy in shared conversations, in intellectual curiosity, in the simple camaraderie of genuine connection. These friendships, built on mutual respect and shared values, enriched my life in profound ways. I discovered a new freedom in being able to speak my truth, to share my thoughts and experiences without fear of judgment or misunderstanding. It was a stark contrast to the guarded existence I had once led, a testament to the power of living an open and honest life. My apartment, once a symbol of my strategic poverty, had fully transformed into a sanctuary of authenticity. It was a space that reflected my inner peace, its simplicity a deliberate choice, its functionality a testament to my practical nature. I spent my evenings in quiet pursuits, reading, listening to classical music, or simply sitting by the window, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. This intentional living, free from the emotional clutter of the past, allowed me to cultivate a deeper connection with my own spirit, to find joy in the present moment, and to embrace the quiet beauty of an unburdened existence. As the seasons continued their gentle cycle, I often reflected on the profound journey that had brought me to this place of peace. It had been a path of difficult choices, of confronting painful truths, and of ultimately redefining what it meant to be a mother, a woman, and a human being of integrity. I had learned that true strength lies not in avoiding conflict, but in facing it with courage and conviction, and that genuine love sometimes demands the setting of firm boundaries. In the quiet solitude of my heart, I found a profound and lasting contentment, a sense of having completed a crucial chapter, and a readiness to embrace whatever new experiences life had yet to offer. My story, once a testament to hidden sacrifice, had become a beacon of purposeful living, a quiet triumph of the human spirit. The passage of time continued its steady march, weaving new threads into the tapestry of my life, each day a quiet affirmation of the path I had chosen. The initial sting of the past had long since faded, replaced by a profound sense of clarity and an unshakable inner peace. My work at the federal agency remained a constant, a source of intellectual engagement, and a testament to my unwavering commitment to integrity. I found deep satisfaction in the meticulous nature of my tasks, in the pursuit of truth within complex financial data, a reflection of the very principles that now guided my personal existence. The office environment, with its structured demands and clear objectives, provided a welcome balance to the more introspective aspects of my life. I often allowed my thoughts to drift to the 15 students whose lives were being transformed by the scholarships. I imagined their laughter in college halls, their intense focus in libraries, their dreams taking flight. Though I remained an anonymous benefactor, I felt a profound spiritual connection to their journeys, a sense of having contributed to a future far brighter than the one I had once envisioned for my own son. This act of selfless giving, born from a crucible of personal pain, had blossomed into a wellspring of quiet joy, a testament to the redemptive power of purpose. It was a legacy not of material wealth, but of opportunity, hope, and the enduring belief in human potential. The silence from Ethan and Myra was now complete, a settled quietude that no longer stirred any emotional turmoil within me. Their lives had truly diverged from mine, their struggles and triumphs entirely their own. I understood that the lessons they were learning, the hard-won wisdom of self-reliance, were invaluable, perhaps more so than any inheritance I could have bestowed. While the mother in me still held a tender space for Ethan, it was a love unburdened by expectation, a love that wished him well from a distance, trusting that he would, in time, find his own path to understanding and personal growth. My peace was no longer contingent on his choices. My social life had flourished, filled with genuine connections and meaningful conversations. I found immense joy in the camaraderie of friends who appreciated my authentic self, unburdened by the pretense of my past. We explored art galleries, attended classical concerts, and shared quiet dinners, discussing everything from current events to philosophical ponderings. These relationships, built on mutual respect and intellectual curiosity, enriched my life in profound ways, offering a stark contrast to the conditional affections I had once navigated. I reveled in the freedom of being truly seen and understood, a testament to the power of living an open and honest life. My apartment, once a symbol of my carefully constructed facade, had fully transformed into a sanctuary of authenticity. Its simplicity was a deliberate choice, its functionality a reflection of my practical nature, and its quiet ambiance a mirror of my inner peace. I spent my evenings in quiet pursuits, delving into new books, listening to the intricate melodies of classical music, or simply sitting by the window, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. This intentional living, free from the emotional clutter and external pressures of the past, allowed me to cultivate a deeper connection with my own spirit, to find profound joy in the present moment, and to embrace the quiet beauty of an unburdened existence. As the seasons continued their graceful cycle, I often reflected on the profound journey that had brought me to this place of serene contentment. It had been a path of difficult choices, of confronting painful truths, and of ultimately redefining what it meant to be a mother, a woman, and a human being of integrity. I had learned that true strength lies not in avoiding conflict, but in facing it with courage and conviction, and that genuine love sometimes demands the setting of firm boundaries, even when it breaks your heart. In the quiet solitude of my heart, I found a profound and lasting peace, a sense of having completed a crucial chapter, and a readiness to embrace whatever new experiences life had yet to offer. My story, once a testament to hidden sacrifice, had become a beacon of purposeful living, a quiet triumph of the human spirit, and a testament to the enduring power of living a life aligned with one's deepest truths. The final months of the year arrived, bringing with them the crisp air of autumn and the gentle whisper of winter's approach. My life continued its steady, purposeful rhythm, each day a quiet affirmation of the profound peace I had cultivated. The past, with its intricate web of secrets and emotional trials, now felt like a distant landscape, its lessons absorbed, its pain transmuted into wisdom. My work at the federal agency remained a constant, a source of intellectual rigor and a deep sense of contribution. I found immense satisfaction in the meticulous pursuit of financial truth, a reflection of the unwavering integrity that now defined every aspect of my existence. The structured demands of my profession provided a grounding force, a clear purpose that resonated deeply with my spirit. I often thought of the Portland Education Foundation, a beacon of hope for so many deserving young individuals. The image of those 15 students, their lives now imbued with the promise of higher education, their potential unlocked, brought a quiet joy to my heart. I imagined their journeys, their struggles, their triumphs, knowing that a part of my own difficult path had contributed to their brighter futures. This act of selfless giving, born from a crucible of personal pain, had blossomed into a profound spiritual fulfillment, a testament to the redemptive power of purpose. It was a legacy, not of material wealth, but of opportunity, hope, and the enduring belief in the transformative power of education. The silence from Ethan and Myra was now absolute, a settled quietude that no longer held any emotional charge for me. Their lives had truly diverged from mine, their struggles and triumphs entirely their own. I understood that the lessons they were learning, the hard-won wisdom of self-reliance, were invaluable, perhaps more so than any inheritance I could have bestowed. While the mother in me still held a tender space for Ethan, it was a love unburdened by expectation, a love that wished him well from a distance, trusting that he would, in time, find his own path to understanding and personal growth. My peace was no longer contingent on his choices, but firmly rooted in my own integrity. My social life had flourished, filled with genuine connections and meaningful conversations. I found immense joy in the camaraderie of friends who appreciated my authentic self, unburdened by the pretense of my past. We explored art galleries, attended classical concerts, and shared quiet dinners, discussing everything from current events to philosophical ponderings. These relationships, built on mutual respect and intellectual curiosity, enriched my life in profound ways, offering a stark contrast to the conditional affections I had once navigated. I reveled in the freedom of being truly seen and understood, a testament to the power of living an open and honest life, free from the need to conceal or manipulate. My apartment, once a symbol of my carefully constructed facade, had fully transformed into a sanctuary of authenticity. Its simplicity was a deliberate choice, its functionality a reflection of my practical nature, and its quiet ambiance a mirror of my inner peace. I spent my evenings in quiet pursuits, delving into new books, listening to the intricate melodies of classical music, or simply sitting by the window, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. This intentional living, free from the emotional clutter and external pressures of the past, allowed me to cultivate a deeper connection with my own spirit, to find profound joy in the present moment, and to embrace the quiet beauty of an unburdened existence. As the year drew to a close, I often reflected on the profound journey that had brought me to this place of serene contentment. It had been a path of difficult choices, of confronting painful truths, and of ultimately redefining what it meant to be a mother, a woman, and a human being of integrity. I had learned that true strength lies not in avoiding conflict, but in facing it with courage and conviction, and that genuine love sometimes demands the setting of firm boundaries, even when it breaks your heart. In the quiet solitude of my heart, I found a profound and lasting peace, a sense of having completed a crucial chapter, and a readiness to embrace whatever new experiences life had yet to offer. My story, once a testament to hidden sacrifice, had become a beacon of purposeful living, a quiet triumph of the human spirit, and a testament to the enduring power of living a life aligned with one's deepest truths. The audit was complete, the accounts settled, and the legacy secured. The rest, as they say, was simply living.